A Yumi won't yell at me. We all have bosses. There we go. And let me share my screen. Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all can see it. Hey, what's up? Shane, hey, all right, cool. Hey, Jerome Amos. It's very funny. Have another Jerome in tech because, hey, that's awkward. People say Jerome and we both say hello. I think we've known each other since I was at CBS and you were at NBC. So that's at least since 2017. That's a long time to know another person with your name. Yeah, so that is right. Yeah, we've known each other at least since 2017. So that's cool. Now, starting us off, like this, the style of this talk is going to be very ad hoc, have slides, but I just want to share with you all just how monumentous and crazy this has been for me when it comes to working with veterans at Vetsuko for a decade, man. And I'm happy for everybody that's here. So first, welcome to the May Military Appreciation Month drill 2024 is very important to me because not only that it's our 10-year anniversary, but it May's the Military Appreciation Month. We have Memorial Day involved in it, and you all know Memorial Day is a very solemn holiday for us. We have to really focus on letting our civilian populace and not come and say for thank you for your service. That Memorial Day is for the fallen, and I know some of us, myself included, or myself especially, we've lost friends and family members over when it comes to military service. And one of the things we even lost veterans, colleagues coming back home, right? I think when I think about Memorial Day, this Memorial Day, I focused a lot on one of our former students, Jason Dooley, and just thinking he's the first veteran since I've started at Sukkot that I've lost to anything. It was to natural causes, but it really one of the motivations behind that Sukkot was to help veterans and not be in a position where I would have to endure those traumas again, not have to go through losing battles again. Because when you're a lot of the other veteran services that are around, that is a real reality that you might lose friends and you might lose other veterans in them, right? When you're going through the mental health services, when you're going to homelessness services. I actually worked in digital strategy, one of my first jobs post-service at a veteran homeless service center. And it was having to deal with, I'm in the office, but you would still hear conversations about this so-and-so died, things of that nature. It really touched me. Like so that's what I was really focusing on. But so hopefully you all had time to think of your loved ones and people that you missed and want to honor over the last weekend. And you're ready to come back with renown and fervor. That's something that I'm really trying to focus on as a way to, like, I let the last year really kick my ass when it comes to thinking about death and things of that nature. So coming back, my dedication, like when it comes to Jason, is like, all right, I'm going to start pushing at the level that I remember Jason pushing, and Jason pushed. I remember seeing Jason in 101s, and we would code and we would do pair programming, and he would have his newborn baby like straddled between like his arms right here. And I was like, if the mother sees you, she's going to flip. But that was like, it's still etched in my memory, like having a little girl, she's like 5 now, but back then she seeing that level of dedication from someone's father, to where I'm watching a baby, but I'm also trying to better myself for my baby's life. IRL, like that's something that I've really have held on to in the past, like year and a half. And like this, like over this weekend, I thought about that a lot. Like really not letting the idea of the scale of the work the weight of the work of the skill I wanted to do hinder and hamper me like I let it in the past. Also, I want to thank Myruck for sponsoring tonight's event. We are actually going through, the CEO's going through a big demo tomorrow, so hopefully get good news from that. But they hire veterans. They've hired 2 veterans already on with coding, and hopefully things go right. November Q4, they'll be bringing more veterans on, and I'll be able to leave them alone as they are helping more veterans. So I don't know, for all the new people here, I want to go into our origin story. I don't know how much people have followed us. Our origin story is pretty simple. Not pretty simple. I was a 27-year-old. Now I'm 37. But I was a 27-year-old troop who had recently learned how to code himself and was in the market, and at that time getting projects, getting opportunities with jobs and stuff. When I got the call to help a family of a fallen veteran who he had taken his own life because of the lack of opportunities post-service they were giving to him, and how the transition just wasn't kind to him. A lot of y'all might not know this, but veteran transition in the military is very broken. I just had a conversation about this yesterday, in which the idea of veteran service, when it comes to military, our TAPS program is supposed to help us transition in a civilian sector, but what it really does is it just helps out process you out the military, right? And give you, it hasn't changed since I left, which was 2010, where essentially what they do is that there's a person a retiree who's now working as a GS, which is government service. They're working on the civilian side of government. It's their second job since being in technology. And they're trying to tell you, a person who's probably getting out at 4 or 6 years, how to transition into the civilian sector. They tell you I remember they told us how to dress for interviews, and they gave us a resume that was essentially a very wordy version of what we did in the military, which is if you are transitioning from the military to the civilian sector, it's probably the worst thing you can do, because civilian sector is less than 1% of veterans are in it. So the person that's looking at your resume has no idea what you did. And if you're going through modern times of applicant tracking systems, you just gave the computer a bunch of gobbledygook that has nothing to do with the job, but you have 2 pages of it. It's always been inherently broken. But this veteran took their life, and there was some situations that was coming up where the family wasn't going to get any help to essentially bury him, not from the government or anything from this stance. And I was just like, that's wrong, considering the why behind it. And I actually, very funny story, I never forget the inception of Vetsuko, because I had that day off. I was supposed to be just kicking it, enjoying myself that day when I got the call. I'll never forget it. It was a Friday. I should have been doing what 27-year-olds do, which is absolutely nothing, play video games and drink. And I didn't get to do that. So that Friday kicks off. What can I do? I'm just a 27-year-old scrub in the city of Memphis. And I never forget Penny Patterson. She said, I think you're the only person that can do something. And so 9 a.m., right when I was getting ready to start chilling, I just I suited up and went to work. So my first thing I did was I created a Bootstrap website. Back then, Bootstrap was getting the hype that Tailwind gets today, that hopefully one day web components will get. And I built this web application, told this person's story, and I told it to the news, I told it to CNN, told everybody. I did everything I could to push. Back then, all the organic reach was pretty great. So you could post things on Facebook and Twitter and get outreach for real without having to pay arm and a leg to tell amazing stories. Now it's not so much you got to go to TikTok and YouTube, but it was just I just took off like wildfire. And that weekend, we were able to raise in about 27 hours. We were able to raise $10,000 for that family and help them cover the burial costs and pay for their child's resting place. And that's my first foray using tech for good. So, like a 27-year-old, I was very full of Kanye West energy, and I was like, I just helped someone. I'm never going to hell. I was really about to not do anything after that. I was like, I'm just gonna go back to work, do my normal stuff, and leave it alone. And then people were like, you can't just do something like that and then just vanish to the ether. And I was like, the hell I can't. Like, why can't I do that? Why can't I just be a normal 20 something? And they're like, well, what you just did wasn't normal. So you can't ask yourself to be normal. So it's like, what can I do? And I was looking at the one thing that really impacted my life positively since being out the military, and that was learning how to code, learning software. My first job out of the military had absolutely nothing to do with my job code, which was 3PL51, security forces, combat arms, armorer, and it was databases, learning how to do databases. Department of Homeland Security actually did not accept my resume for security forces with my law enforcement and security background, but then they accepted me for the year of database training that I had did. So when I look at that, I'm like, that's pretty tech and coding has pretty much always has been my saving grace, especially during the height of the recession, getting it out. And it was so hard to get jobs back then. It's now is difficult when it comes to interviewing for the jobs, but back then it was a nightmare to even get. You have people at Harvard busting tables because no one could get hired. So tech was really my saving grace, and that was like, if I did this as a 3PO51 who has no technical background, a person who a year prior to their job thought that how websites were made was you got an LLC and then you started a business and the website magically popped up, and had no idea what SEO and HTML and CSS. I wasn't one of those kids that was playing around on MySpace because I was out there doing like real stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it was just, oh, okay. So this is it. This is how tech is. I want to help more veterans bring tech. And I even remember when I pitched the idea as a veteran who coded before I even started at Code. I had a person that was like, can veterans actually learn how to code? And it just showed me just how little the civilian population knew of veterans, as well as how little people saw people like me as veterans. It shared me those two stories. And so that's when I was like, you know what, I have to do something to put a dent in the universe. And that is how Vetsuko was born in that very moment. I was like, I'm going to help turn more veterans into software engineers, focus on mostly first term troops. Though when I say first term, I'm like those that served 4 to 6 years, because if you serve 20 years, you get retire pay, things of that nature. But those serve 4 to 6 years, unless they're severely injured, the only thing that they really tell you to do is use your GI Bill or try to use VRE now. And it was vet tech, but vet tech was a pilot program, and I don't even think that's coming back because the amount of software engineers to the amount of money being spent is just, the dollars don't make sense on it. So I don't think that's coming back. But the whole idea of, I just want to create as many people as know. I don't care about the price point. I'm going to do everything I can to make the price point low, and I'm going to create a pathway for people like me to get into software engineering. So that's pretty much our origin story. How I got into the idea of teaching veterans how to code with zero experience of teaching veterans anything beyond how to shoot at the range and weapon nomenclature, and that their weapon was dirty, and getting E5s and E6s to slide me $20 bills to clean out their weapons at the armory because they wanted to go home and they didn't want to fail inspection. So that is it was that is the origin story. Over the past decade, we've created we've created a crazy good, I feel like a impactful community when I see that now troops are hiring troops. I have a troop on the East Coast and the West Coast who they have direct reports that are hash flag veterans. I even have a troop that is now on my team at work. He just got promoted. So the idea of, and I actually helped him and helped coach him get the job and things. So that idea that we're having we're having veteran Vetsuco troops saturate the market and working with each other. To me, that's what community really is. It's not just a bunch of people drinking and partying and doing like vlogs and podcasts and stuff together. Because if you're, in the veteran community, if you've seen it, where all the vet bros and ranger panties and blowtorches are all kicking it together, but we need to focus on in our community, making our community supportive and building better systems to support it together, which is what we're doing. We've integrated a lot of content creation. I'm a big data nerd because one, I am a software engineer. Two, also, I feel like you have to, as a minority, I've always felt like I have to back up what I say and how I feel about things, and what I might work with the numbers. But in nonprofit, stories do matter, and we've integrated a lot of that content creation and telling the stories of our troops to help with faster job placement, as well as tell the stories. A lot of people don't know that one of the success metrics of Etsu Code is how much money we actually raise in correlation to how much money we produce with our troops. If Vetsu Code makes one veteran a software engineer a year, it's pretty much an 100% return on our fundraising. We've never raised more than $50,000 a year. I think we got really close, like one or 2 years ago, where we were like at 49,999.728 or something like that. And when you think of, we've had $3 million years at Vetsu Code where troops have made over $1 million in salaries. So when you see that number correlate and just think, oh, 10 years, that means we have barely raised $100,000 in 10 years, but we've done 20 million in jobs. It's a crazy, wild, great. It's an impactful like number, right? But what really matters is those stories. When people see stories like Adrian Grimm, who he started late in life wanting to learn how to code, and he's you can go to his GitHub repo, and I actually went there a couple of days ago, reminiscing about the old days. And he's taken the throttle off, but he still pushes code to GitHub on projects every day. I think he's on like his 10,000th commit, and I am like, that is wild. Now just going through code that he's been writing and stuff, and I'm like, you're doing this on top of your job and you have a grandkid? Like, dude, you're an animal, and you make me feel like crap because Hendrix is kicking my butt right now, and I'm lucky if I get any time to code, on my own, on like by myself without having to tag in a teenager or his mom. So like, it's to see that stories like that, stories like Erin, who's now a software engineer in Appalachian State University. She's building things for the college, or Ozzy, who's building crazy, wild things for the government that he can't tell me. And now he has his own troop that is also one of his subordinates, James Riga. So they're both over there using React AI and Go and building Lord knows what, the next Terminator for all we know. They're building Skynet for Uncle Sam. Like it's pretty those stories, like they help with they help with legitimizing our organization, but they also help us when we're like trying to let other veterans know that you too can do this if you want. Like you could Adrian and myself, we both come from security forces backgrounds. Ozzy, he comes from a kind of technically come from a drone background, but when you meet people that don't come from a technical background and they come from, it's that saying, you can't be what you can't see, right? So when you see people that they understand N4 nomenclature and strike team operations, things like that. And then they're like, oh, now let's talk about JavaScript and TypeScript and performance and space-time complexity and why is this is ON and things of that nature. You're like, okay, I can be this guy because this guy did what I used to do, right? That really helps. And next for me, it's been a gift and a curse for the whole significantly reducing training costs. I thought I was doing good by making such high quality training and education affordable and coming from a background of of teaching, but you would be amazed how a lot of these grant places now they want you to raise at least $1 million before they give you a grant. My output with our output doesn't match the amount of money you raise. So while we are going to be focusing more on raising money, we're also going to be focusing more on like scaling and helping upwards of 2,500 troops a year. That's our 2027 goal that we're really working hard towards. Like I said, today we're at a pivotal moment, not just with our platform that we're dropping in 2024 Veterans Day this year, but if you've been paying attention to the market for juniors, it's never been a harder time, a more difficult time. And as a matter of fact, I just read a study that anyone who's trying to make more than $70,000 a year, that the market has been tough for them. What we have been seeing in with our own studies is because of artificial intelligence. One, a lot of companies are trying to see how they can translate that compute using coding AI assistants to enhance their engineers they already have, make them more productive, one. And two, because AI can do the things that an engineer, frankly, in 2018, 2019, who just come out of code school could do. And, education hasn't really stepped up to that metric when it comes to both on the collegiate and the code school background for the most part. It's really tough for the entry level and junior engineers to get out there because they're learning methods that are literally outdated. They're not learning how to code with the software engineering like development life cycle in mind, right? They're learning just the syntax and things, but now you have to think more like a programmer, think more like a problem solver. And between the companies thinking that the solution is let's ingest more computer science into our job interview process, and the code schools not teaching how to think like an engineer more, we're seeing across the board a lot of entry level, thankfully not us, but a lot of entry level and juniors that are not meeting the metrics when it comes to the greater market. We are new. We have some stuff that we have not dropped publicly yet that's been really working on how we've been approaching education that I'm holding close to the chest because open source when you're a nonprofit means that free code camp and code platoon comes around your sniffing around your repo and steal your ideas and don't tell anyone about it. One thing that we've been working on is how to incorporate more AI, more automation, as well as get closer to to teaching how to code from a perspective of the software development lifecycle. As some people who have been through our curriculum and processes that tell you I'm very big on a product focused education, because in the end, what we're building is things for users, whether you're a data engineer, you're building data pipelines and processes for other people to ingest that data and utilize it. That's your user. If I'm building front end, my user is the customer. If I'm building DevOps, my user is the other developers and the application and all. And I want to make sure that the application is safe and stable. So I'm always thinking about, all right, what is the user that we have to prepare for when it comes to anything we teach? And that's where we've been at for the past year. Like now with AI, what do we truly need to focus on when we need to teach our veterans? And one of those things, a lot of those things have been developer life cycle and focusing on how do we teach our veterans how to not only learn quickly, but learn multiple languages fast. That breakthrough came from a friend of mine at work, Nishay, where he taught me how to learn languages faster by focusing on patterns and not data structures and algorithms. And that's one thing we've been incorporating a lot more, where we've been focusing more on patterns so that we can have our veterans transition from one language to another faster. And right now, about 47% of all VWC troops do not have JavaScript as their core programming language, even though that's what we primarily teach. I'm sorry, I hear my dogs in the background. They are excited inexplicably. Yeah. I guess it goes to this, like why our approach is working. Pretty simple. I go from what does the client wants, and the client is the job market, backwards. It's wild, I know, but that's how I tend to think of things. Like our approach has been working for 10 years because we don't focus on pontificating and being opinionated about code and things like that. We are very train how we fight because we're military veterans, right? That's how that's all our training. You train how you fight, so you train how you work, which means you need to be learning how to do Git management. You need to be working in the CLI, because eventually you're going to have to do something in the CLI, and CLI is going to bite you. You have to focus on how to work collaboratively across multiple branches and do PRs, things of that nature. Document. Adrian, I keep picking on him, but he knows how I'm a very big stickler of documentation. It's just anything we've been using our advantage of everybody at VWC being a software engineer first and having work in the industry, and we implement that stuff directly into our culture, and then we turn around and we focus on wherever the job market is. Because even though they call me Captain America, I take a Batman approach. Like I have to accept the world where it is and adapt to it. So we're looking at the culture and the job market where it is, and then focusing on how we can adapt and overcome that with our curriculums, with our mentorship, with our one-on-ones, things like that. Some of our craziest, most fun success stories, if you look them up, Andrew James, he's my favorite success story because he's the most extreme. He reached out to me when he was in Finland, and he was looking to come back to America for a job, and he didn't have any transferable skills. So so I guess I should revert all the way back, because even meeting him was wild. So he was Army Special Forces, met the love of his life while doing a contract in Finland for, get this, cheerleading. So the year that cheerleading was going to be tested as an Olympic sport, this dude had been a D1 cheerleader at college before he came into the military. So he has an Olympic ring for cheerleading, and it's the wildest thing ever. So he went to Finland to teach pro cheerleading. Didn't have a transferable skill to come back home to be closer to his parents. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I was still new out in the military, and anybody who is in the military, y'all know, like somebody hits you up from a, a country you've never been to, something like that. You're like, oh, psyops. This is North Korea trying to steal my information. I never forget, he reached out to me, blocked him instantly. It was like, no, this is a fake person. He had to go and find another way to reach out to me. No, I'm an actual person. And then I was like, okay, let's jump on a call. I had to like really see his face. So he had to tell me his story because I was like, nah, like this can't be real. I can't have some dude from Finland hitting me up about code. And he told me his story, and I was like, okay, cool. I'll see what I can do. I'll work with you. And that was the beginning of our relationship of not only training him and working with him while he was in Finland, helping him get back to the States with his wife, and him going through the process of finding his forever job and forever community in Dallas. And I learned that like where he's at in Texas has a very big Finnish community. So he's found not only his dream job while being in Dallas, he's found a place where his wife can be. She has a community, so she's not extremely homesick when it comes to being in America. And she's in UX as well. So that was also pretty cool to have this dynamic duo power couple of programmer and user experience expert come to America, and then they go to Texas and they find a Finnish community in Dallas of all places, because that's not what you think of when you think of Texas. It's finding a group of people from Finland living there, and just seeing him being able to be closer to his parents and aging, be able to take care of them and start this new life. And when I do talk to him, he talks to me more about his dogs than coding now, and it's very funny. I don't care about your dogs because your dogs aren't cooler than my dogs, because that's how all dog people are. But yeah, like that to me, that's my favorite. That is my favorite story. Although you never get your first troop that you get a job. One of my first was John Garcia Air Force. So that was pretty cool to when I started doing very cohort based education, not just everybody come and learn. He was my first formulated student, and he he got to work at Reddit. He got to do some big jobs at Elle magazine and stuff like that afterwards. And he was the first troop that I ever taught that was drinking one night during education. Like he took a quick sip of some red wine, and I was like, "Are we taking nightcaps while we are supposed to learn how to code?" And I just never forget calculate, because I mean that's what hit me when like remote work and remote education is totally different than institutionalized everybody in the seat type phase. Oh yeah, they're in their home. I can't tell a person in their home that they can't have a glass of wine while we're talking about CSS. It probably made a CSS better, but he's recently welcomed a child. I've seen the pictures on Instagram, and he and his wife and the baby are doing very healthy. And he's still a software engineer, which is pretty awesome. So I'm very happy about that. Those are just two of the many stories that too many I can't think of. I got one more. My troops got Tim Ferriss to sign a book for me for Christmas, and that was the first time anyone ever got any cohort or anybody at Vetsu Code had gotten me a Christmas gift. I deserve way more, whatever. But they got together. They asked me. I was on a big Tim Ferriss, reading all his books by when I was around 32. Man, that's so long ago. And I remember that one, I found out by accident that one of the troops who was Navy, she is like related to Tim Ferriss in some crazy way. And I'm out here doing my best work. And this nurse who's now a programmer, she's in Texas, in Austin, and she's like, hey, my cousin's here. And so she's like, hey, this is, she goes and gets me, I just a signed version of Tribe of Mentors shows up at my house. And I'm like, holy crap. I never thought this would happen in my life. So now I have a bunch of, have a Tim Ferriss signed book, while also a bunch of other things like signed from programmers all over the world when it comes to books. And that was like the first time that any troop had given me like a birthday, a Christmas gift. So I might start hitting up the troops and trying to guilt them into giving me more Christmas gifts. So the future vets who code. What are the next 10 years going to look like? Next 10 years, they're going to look busy. Right now, we've been weekly going into our first sergeant program. If you want to sign up to be a first sergeant, only rule is you have to have at least 1 year of programming experience, like professional, at a job, at least one. You could be contractor now, but you had to at least have one verifiable year. And of course, follow our code of conduct. But we are looking heavily for our human in the loop first sergeants. The data at VetSuco, 300 veterans, 302 veterans, including myself, you put 303, 10 years, doesn't lie. People that have mentors or first sergeants that have production level experience in code, they learn how to write software the fastest. We also want to do that because we want people that can pair program. That's another metric that we saw in our data, that people who pair program, people that met up with their mentors regularly, those were the people that got jobs the fastest. So we're heavy bound. We have our SOPs for our first sergeants, how to handle certain situations. If you're interested in becoming a first sergeant, please go to our mentor page, fill that out. We try to do a 2-up, just like in the military. When it comes to mentorship, we do a 2-up, 2-down type rule, right? So there's no more than 2 years of experience between a newbie and a first sergeant. However, we do have people that are looking for mentorship and first sergeants that are not juniors. So do not let your experience level stop that, because one of the things that I stress, that I am, even at 10 years, still young in my career. So there are people who have 20 years, 30 years. I'm like, that's great. There are people that want to get an engineering manager track at VetSuco or the vice president track at VetSuco that I cannot support, because that's something that I've yet to do. So that is what we still need, that type of talent for people who are ready for there. Like I know for a fact, Andrew James, Ozzy Vargas, they need that type of support when it comes to people who are in engineering management, who are coding at least 30-40% of the time, being able to educate them on how to become better managers in their own teams and units, right? So don't let experience, like we will help you find the right person. Now, when you're dealing with juniors, you're going to be the human in the loop on our platform as well as with them, because we want to make sure for AI safety that we are keeping humans in the loop. Right now we are in a very big jailbreaking phase, making sure that we don't have what I like to call beige flagging, where our tool is giving them the answer versus helping them learn the answer, learn how to think like an engineer. But we are also focusing on the idea of how to make sure that this works well with people who are senior engineers or have more experience real world while helping the newbies. And that's where, we cannot hesitate. I cannot stress enough about how important volunteers are to this, because even with artificial intelligence involved and automation of being able to test their repositories and being able to do that's one thing that we're leveraging a lot of that for. The ability to do all that doesn't matter if we don't have people involved, because software engineering is a people sport. No matter how much AI is involved, no matter what the problems can be solved, like with the tools, it's still a user sport. I've had my own experiences with using artificial intelligence on VetSuco. where I let the AI build an entire feature and it did not read, it didn't index our repo well. So it brought in React Bootstrap, even though we use Tailwind. So we had all this Bootstrap in a feature. And I was like, we don't use this at all. What are you talking about? So I had to go back and reprompt it using Copilot Workspace of all things to be able to build the feature from the ground up correctly. So we know that we are always testing the limitations of these things. And I can tell you that we still need people who are on the front line, going to be mentoring people. And this is also a thing to help me democratize the things that I have learned over the past 10 years when it comes to helping veterans get a job. Quite frankly, I do not want to be the stop loss of that education of helping veterans get jobs, right? I don't want to be a person who is the only person that can help you if you come from a specialized community and culture. I want people to be able to champion, this is the why you do these things. This is the why you build in public. This is the why you focus on things. This is the why you have to build this thing this certain way, right? This is the why you learn how to use modular pattern in with building a JavaScript calculator. So you learn how to create something that works regularly and stable without a piece of code that is not interacting with other things, right? Like I don't want to be the only person doing that. So one of the things that we're doing in our first sergeant training is we're passing on a lot of that information and education. So we're almost over at time. I just want to let you all know, conclusion call to action for us. First, thank y'all. Like 10 years has been crazy for me, especially when you think the average software engineer doesn't even spend more than 2 years at a job. To be in a spot in my life where where I've been investing in people's life through software engineering regularly for 10 years straight, same Slack channel, same stack for the most, not really. Stack has changed a lot from when I first started to now. Just I started this as a 27-year-old who had been out in the military maybe 3.5 years and was just getting their feet wet in the software engineering world, to now an old dude with kids and dogs and don't want to go outside because my allergies are too bad and I'm starting to have acid reflux. So like I'm looking at that picture of me in Slack and I'm like, oh man, those were the good old days when I could eat whatever I wanted to at any time and not worry about the consequences. But yeah, when you contribute to VWC, whether it's to sharing our work, whether it's volunteering, especially when it's volunteering, or when it's donating, you're helping people like that dumb 27-year-old who had no idea what he was getting himself into transition into successful software engineering careers and help them put their own dent in the universe. The thing that I'm most proud of when we do this program is we help people who have served their nation put food on their tables with a skill that is, quite frankly, the last white collar skill in America. This is the last, frontier in white collar employment that's real skill based. And this is the last industry that is also in that same veil that I'm like, hey, you get out, like you can really get out of this what you put into it. And if you were a veteran, especially when I was coming to the military, no matter how hard you work, there are rules. When it comes to, I know Army, they just throw rank in Army people, but in the Air Force, it's like you're gonna be airman first class for like at least 2-3 years before you're able to get to the NCO program, right? At 2 years, if you join 6 years, you get your airman first class. You get a chance to do BTZ after 18 months, which is airman below the zone, to get a senior airman stripe. If you don't get that, you have 24 months in service that you can wearing airman first class, so you could do it. And then after another 2 years, if you're really good, you could test for staff sergeant or E5. And here, you can literally lock yourself in a room in software engineering and port over everything for 2 3 years and just shoot up in your career. And I think that's super. I think that's like the coolest thing about tech is, especially when you get the younger troops or the Marines, as I've been pointing out. These dudes, they just move so fast in their careers when you give them that initial first shot. So first, before we end anything, I want to say thank you to everybody who has ever donated to Vetsu Code, volunteered at Vetsu Code, told people about Vetsu Code. Thank you, Jerome. Amos is always inviting me to stuff and telling people about Vetsu Code. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Shane, for letting me do Vetsu Code things when I should probably be writing code at work. Letting me go to Google Next instead of being at work when we're pushing hard on a project. Thank you for that. Thank you for, most importantly, thank you, everybody, because we're recording this, I'm sending this out, and thank you for everybody who's ever given me the opportunity to make their life better through code. I think for me, that is my greatest gift to myself, is that I've been able to continue being of service to people, particularly at a time where I was coming out of service. And the wildest thing that I couldn't really understand as a civilian or in a civilian sector was how people built community without doing things like, I tried to join CrossFit, try to join other types of communities, but tech was what really resonated with me because I could be of service. So I just want to be able to say thank you to anyone that's ever allowed me to be of service and help them become a better software engineer, better person, better leader, better coder, I don't know, better foosball player, help your music, taste in music, whatever. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it. I think we have a little bit of time. Yeah, we have 10 minutes. I just want to, first, let me answer this on the Limno chat. Yes, honey, Dwala, you had E2 give us a retirement out brief during our transition class before 25. That is wild. That's scary. I would never. That's very scary. In E2, that person had 3 more years of service to do before they even get out. That's wild. But yeah, I'm open to questions, answers, visuals, gripes, complaints, anything. I'm open to it. Excited to see what I accomplish in the next 10 years. More gray hairs. That's probably what I'm going to accomplish in the next 10 years. I'm definitely going to get more gray hairs. These new babies are a different type of stressful from the old babies. So just learning. Yeah, but if you have any questions, please hit me. If not, I will go ahead and give everybody 5 minutes back. Once, then the Q&A. Twice. All right, third time's the charm. All right, I will see you all on the interwebs later. Thank you, Jerome. Like I said, so weird. Thank you, Amos. I'm gonna start saying that because it's so weird saying thank you, Jerome, to you. You're Jerome. But thank you, famous Amos. You know what? Cool. I'm gonna start calling you that. That'll be your call sign. You'll be famous Amos from this point on. Change it in the Slack channel. Yeah. But thank y'all. And if you, like I said, if you want to volunteer, you want to help people, VetsuCode.io is right there. I am always an open book to be able to let's help the next generation of veterans to transition out of service, especially as you all see. I don't think we're going to be peacetime for any longer. I mean, for much longer in these streets. So as people are entering, exiting, let's be the one thing that they can depend on when they are ready to get back into civilian populace. Other than that, I will talk to you all later. See y'all on LinkedIn and interwebs. Y'all have a great evening.